Hello airhead lovers and welcome back to Airhead Barn. We are continuing these inspections of our top end of R90S 9075 that we are restoring, and today we are going to focus on cylinder heads. So when talking about cylinder heads, first thing that I would like to do when taking them apart is to flip them upside down, fill them with some either penetrating oil or WD-40, either one should work, and leaving them maybe for a day or two to check out if I have any leaks with the valves. Compression was done before this assembly and showed really nice numbers, so I did not expect to have any major problems with these heads. I didn't expect to have any leakage on either of the valves, but nevertheless, actually that's pretty good practice to do. In our case, of course, we didn't have any leaks, and then I proceeded with cleaning them. Previously I used different techniques to clean that carbon buildup from the cylinder heads, from the combustion chamber and also valves, and this time actually I used Techron Complete Fuel System Cleaner. So one bottle was plenty enough actually to soak combustion chamber and also pistons, and this thing worked pretty well. So I left it for that carbon buildup to soak for a couple of days. In maybe after like 12 hours I would scrub it to enable even deeper penetration, and this thing worked, and heads came out pretty nicely cleaned. I didn't need to use almost any wheel brush and just green Scotch-Brite to clean that carbon buildup, so I can hardly recommend that thing for cleaning carbon buildup. Alright, so now when everything is clean, we are going to start with the inspection of heads and valves. These valves and seats I already lapped, but in general you want to do inspection before doing lapping. I did check them before and it seems everything is fine, so I proceeded with lapping. That's not something that I'm going to show in this video, but if you are interested in how to manually lap them, you can check our R75/7 restoration where I'm doing that. And at this point I'm going to switch over first to checking valves. Alright, so here I have intake valve, and as you can see, this one is really nicely lapped. When lapping, what you want to achieve is a mate surface like this that is exactly in between, in the middle, and this will provide really nice seal with the seats. Okay, so as I said, intake valve, this one should be 42 millimeter of diameter, and that's what my caliper is showing. And then you rotate it a bit and make sure that you are getting the same reading of 42 millimeters. That's pretty basic. Next thing that you want to check is actually how much meat you have here at the edge, and the minimum that is required is 1 millimeter. If you lap it, then you will have a really nice and clean edge here that you can measure. And then if I check this one out, I'm here at 1.2 millimeters. So this intake valve definitely passes that. Another thing that you would want to check here is actually diameter of a stem. So as valves are getting used, they develop taper here, and that's something that you definitely want to avoid. So for R90S, stem diameter should be between 7.935 and 7.95 millimeters. And for that, it's nice to use micrometer. First, you want to zero that one out, and this one is. So let's go a bit more than 8 millimeters, and we will start measuring it. All right. 7.939, that's within spec. 7.941, and here 7.941. So this one definitely does not have any kind of taper, and it's perfectly okay to reuse this valve. If valve developed a taper, that means that it would have a lot of free play inside the guides, and you would need to replace that valve and most likely guides as well, because they are made of bronze, which is softer material than this steel here. Eventually that would, excessive free play of your valve would result in increased oil consumption. Okay, so that's regarding how you are testing your valves. Same applies to the exhaust valve. Only diameter of a head is going to be 40 millimeters for this particular bike. All right. Okay, so in this inspection, next thing that we are going to do is actually check for seats recession. So when you insert valves in a guides, those valves should not be recessed into seats. Usually the biggest problem is with the exhaust seat, but it's a good idea to check both of them. This is 1975 model. They used proper material, hardened seats, and I don't expect any problems there. And then, as I can see, that really seats are standing beautifully, and there is not going to be any kind of recession of a valve, so that's perfectly fine. And in order to prove that, here is how cleaned valve lapped looks inside when we put it in place. It's absolutely spot on, so no need to address that at all. Okay, next thing that you want to check is that free play of your valve inside the guides, and there are different ways how you can do that. There are actually pins that you can try to insert inside. There are go, no go. If it fits inside, that means that guide is worn out, you need to replace it. If it doesn't fit inside, means it's still okay to use it. The way how I like to do it is basically insert my valve inside and then use dial gauge and gently rock your valve up and down and measure that free play. And I'm getting here, I would say around 0.15. Depends where I am. Yeah, it's around 0.15 millimeters. And I measured similar for the exhaust as well. And that's somewhere, at 0.20 would be the maximum. So 0.15 would be still passing, but we should definitely keep our eye on oil consumption in case that this free play is causing it. So I gave this a bit more thought, and usually if guides are worn, you would get kind of elliptical shape of a guide in such a way that exactly how a rocker is hitting on the other side your valve, you will get a bigger gap, and then perpendicular to that, so this plane your diameter should be a bit smaller. So when I positioned my dial gauge to measure, for instance here compared to here, I'm getting exactly same number, which kind of leads me to a conclusion that that's probably tolerance that's there, kind of built in, and it's not that guide is worn out. Another way of checking these is basically old school. You would fill them up with oil, fill guides completely with oil, put valve inside, turn head upside down, close it with your finger on a top, and see if your valve is held in a place by vacuum or it actually slides out. That's how it was done back in the days, and if a valve is sliding out, that means that hole is just too big. If it holds in place, that usually means that it passes the test and it can be safely used. Before this assembly, I was able to start this bike. I didn't notice any kind of blue smoke that would be a good indication that we are getting oil through these guides and all the way out to the exhaust. So that kind of brings me to the conclusion that this actually might be okay, even though it's almost at the edge where it needs to be serviced. So for that reason, I'm going to keep a close eye on oil consumption, and if this needs to be addressed, then we will attack that job as well. By the way, that's something that I plan to bring, that capability of working on a heads in a shop, hopefully pretty soon. Okay, with that, now we are going to assemble the head, and it should be ready to go back on a bike. For aluminum cleaning, as usually I use the Autosol products. Okay folks, that's it regarding inspection of cylinder heads. Luckily everything seems okay for now. I'm going to assemble valves back together with the springs that I removed, and then with that everything will be pretty soon ready to go back on a bike. I hope you liked it, and thank you so much for joining.